This video I'll work on rotating points or objects within a 90-degree increment about the origin, which means I'll rotate it 90 degrees clockwise, 180 degrees clockwise, or 270 degrees clockwise about the origin. Our goal is to try and figure out a rule as we rotate these either clockwise or counterclockwise. Visually, I can show you that I'm going to try and move this dot, which is at 3, 1. I want to spin this or rotate it 90 degrees. Here I'm doing it counterclockwise and land it there, and this happens to land at -1, 3. Now the hard part of this right now is I not only moved the dot, I actually moved the dot and the grid. And I would rather just you see the dot move the 90 and have the grid stay permanent. One thing you should notice though is when I do move this grid 90 degrees, the grid lands back in the same spot. It's the dot that's really moving. So in the next couple slides, I'll try and rotate a dot, keeping one grid permanent as I have another grid that's transparent. So I'm going to start with this point 1, 2, and I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees clockwise about the origin. So when I do this, I actually added in a couple more visuals to this. As I rotate 90 degrees clockwise, there it goes. Now what I'm kind of rotating is a transparent grid with a new red dot on it. That red dot started where the black was, and now that red dot is the moving point. And as I rotate 90 degrees, it gets stuck at 2, -1. So it started at 1, 2, that's the original point, and it rotated from 1, 2 down to 2, -1. Now that's just one point. I'm going to look at the following points on this grid so we can see if we can see a pattern or a rule so we understand how to rotate any point x, y. I moved the point to -4, 1, and I'm going to rotate that one 90 degrees clockwise. And as I rotate, this kind of looks like a rising sun coming up from the east. And after 90 degrees, it lands high up near noon, if you would. And that point is, I'm going to move this over here and retype it in, 1, 4. The next point I plotted is -2, -3, so that's in the lower left corner. As I rotate him, he rotates up above the ground and lands in the top left corner. Oops. So let's put that point in here. And that point looks to be -3, 2. We're going to do one more. Now I've set up the point, but I don't want to rotate it yet. I want to see if we can make somewhat of a prediction. Look here at the first point we did. It went 1, 2 to 2, -1. -4, 1 to 1, 4. -2, -3 to -3, 2. I noticed two things. First off, disregard any negatives. Just look at the numbers. 1, 2, 2, 1, 4, 1, 1, 4, 2, 3, 3, 2. Now notice I didn't say any negatives in there. I was just looking at the number sign. 1, 2, 2, 1. Those were the same, they just flipped. 4, 1 went to 1, 4, 2, 3 went to 3, 2. So if I have the 1 and the 5, part of my prediction is I bet it's going to be a 5 and a 1. So I'll put that in here. I do not know anything about the signs. I'm putting in a 5 and a 1 just because I notice the numbers go backwards. 1, 2 to 2, 1. So likewise on this one, 1, 5 to 5, 1. But then there's something about the negatives. This 1, 2 went to 2, -1. The -4, 1 went to 1, 4. What seems to be happening is, I'm going to highlight this, the 2 stayed a 2. The 1 stayed a 1. The -3 stayed a -3. The -5 then must stay a -5. It seems like the last number in the original point becomes the first number and the rotated points. Now let's see if we see a trend on the other remaining numbers. 1 went to -1. -4 went to a +4. -2 went to a +2. The 1 must go to a -1. And the reason I'm saying is because the blue numbers are switching signs. So when 1 goes to -1, that helps switch the sign. I have not moved it yet. All I've done is made a prediction. The first row of blues, the first column of blues becomes the last column of blues over here. And the second set of numbers here in yellow become the first set of numbers over here. The yellows stay the same, but the blues seem to switch signs. So let's take a look and see if this prediction holds true. Here goes clockwise from 1, -5, and as I rotate it clockwise, it ends up at -5, -1 like we predicted. So I'm going to create a rule here where I notice that the XY goes to YX. What I'm saying with this so far is it went blue, yellow, and then it goes to yellow, blue. So the order switches, but there's one caveat. The blue becomes a negative version of itself. That does not mean this coordinate is negative. It means it's switched. Again, I'll repeat that. That does not mean that this point is negative. It means it's switched. So what I'm trying to say is the yellow here goes to the yellow there and it stays the same. The blue here goes to the blue there, but the sign changed. That's why it went from 1 to a -1, changed the sign. Or here it went from -4 to +4. It changed the sign. So I'm going to make a prediction then that -4 is 0. I'm first going to switch it, 0, -4. So far I switched the order, but then I need to realize that the blue changes. So -4 should go to a +4. So right now I have again yellow to yellow and blue to blue. So let's see if I am right. So I've set up the point at -4, 0, and as I rotate it up, my prediction is it's going to go to 0, +4. Rotating up, and it does land on 0, +4. On this next slide, we're going to rotate 270 degrees clockwise, which is easier to think for me, 90 degrees counterclockwise. So I'm going to start again with the point 1, 2. And as I rotate, instead of going clockwise like we did all on the previous slide, I'm going to rotate it the other way. And this is 90 degrees counterclockwise. I'm going to go until I hit that 90, and I get it to be -2, let's see, -2, 1. So I'm going to record that here. And notice the pattern. It should be very similar to what we had done on the previous page, where I'll highlight in the same fashion that we did. There went to there, so the inside numbers are the same, and the outside numbers are the same. Except this time, the blue actually stays the same, and the yellow switches signs. So from that pattern, if I could predict it, the blue needs to go to a blue, and the yellow needs to go to the yellow. So let's see if I would fill in the blanks here. I'm going to get, on this next point, 1, -4, but which guy was the one switching? 1 and -4, the front guy seemed to switch. So, blue stays blue, blue stays blue, yellow stays yellow but it switches signs, yellow stays yellow but it switches signs. Let's take a look. Here goes the rotation of 90 degrees counterclockwise. and I land at -1, -4 like we predicted. So if I could go straight to the rule, I would try to write it this way. The order switches, y, x. Now the debate is which guy receives the negative? Which guy changed? Was it the front or the back that changed? And in this case, the yellows were the ones changing, so it goes to -y, x. So I'm going to highlight that. What students struggle with is when they see the negative, they think the first number here has to be negative. I want you to think negative means switches sign. Negative means switches sign. So if I was to write, let's do it up here on this one. If I wanted to write this pairing, first thing, I want to flip it, changing the order. So -3, -2. All I did was change it from blue, yellow to yellow, blue. And now this first guy here changes because that's where it says here the negative, that means change. So how do you change a -3? You make a -3. And a negative makes a positive. This next one is rotating it 180 degrees clockwise or counterclockwise. Before I get into the numbers of it, I just want you to look at, here comes clockwise, 190, 290s, which makes 180. Or if you do it the other way, 90, another 90, you also land at the same spot. And the reason is you're going halfway around a full rotation. So if you spin to the right or spin to the left halfway, you land on the other side of the grid. This point that we landed on is -1, -2. So I'm going to record that, put it in here. I want you to see the pattern that it doesn't seem to be switching this time. It looks like the yellow, which I had on the first or the second number here, stays on that second number on the rotated point, and the first number being blue stayed the first number being blue. The only difference was both blues and both the yellows switched signs. So if you were to make a prediction on that, I would assume the order stayed the same, but both signs switched. So if I had it, the XY would stay in XY, but both become negative. So if I wanted to do -4, -4, 1 and make a prediction on that using my predicted rule, the -4 would change to a +4 and the +1 would change to a -1. Let's take a look. So I'm starting at -4, 1, and as I rotate it clockwise 180 degrees, it lands at 4, -1, which was what our prediction was. So this time, again, the order stayed the same. Y, Y, X, X. Blue, yellow, blue, yellow. The difference was the X switched and the Y switched signs. So if we wanted to generalize these, I'm going to put it all on one summarized page. When you rotate clockwise, you're going to be starting always with XY, and he goes to, so let's draw an arrow here, he goes to, instead of XY, it switches the order, YX, but one of them became negative, and it actually happened to be the back side. So at the next one, when you rotate 270 degrees clockwise, the order switches again, but the negative is now placed in the front with the Y. And when I say negative, it does not mean it's negative, it means it switched signs. And the last one, when you do it twice, the 180 degrees, clockwise or counterclockwise, the order stays the same. XY goes to XY, but both of them switch signs. So hopefully these patterns are shown in this video for you.